All right, hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Pastrami Nation podcast. I'm Kevin, and joining me today, as usual, Eli. What's going? Actually, not as usual. You haven't been here for the last few weeks. How's it going? Good, awesome. That's good to hear. And of course, wouldn't be the Pastrami Nation podcast without Christian. How you doing today, sir?
It's good to see you guys. How are you?
Oh, we're doing great. We're doing great. And today, y'all, we have a very, very special guest. He is the CEO of Mad Cave Studios. He's also a writer over there. He's here to talk about his new shared universe comic book series. The shared universe is called The Underworld. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Mark London. How you doing today, Mark?
Doing well. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Eli and Christian, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. We're excited. So we talked about this a little bit before the show started, but first of all, I want to say congratulations, 10 years, Mad Cave Studios. That's a pretty amazing feat. Can you just kind of what's the last 10 years been like there? I know you said it hasn't always been easy, but you know how has it been the last 10 years for you?
I think that it has been a roller coaster. Just to put it in layman's terms, it's been surreal. It's been humbling, but it's also been very, very exciting. Especially because I think that Mad Cave has grown organically. We've managed to do things, I believe, the right way. In terms of how we see, we have stuck to our vision, we have stuck to our mission on what a company should be, especially when you work with creators, with talent in the industry, in the comic book industry, in the publishing industry. So it's been surreal, Kevin, in a sense. But again, not easy. But as I like to discuss with the team at Mad Cave is I think that good work leads to more work. So
absolutely,
I can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, you guys I just read Attaboy, by the way. I thought Attaboy was fantastic. You guys have a bunch of really, really great books. If you all haven't checked out Mad Cave Studios, check them out online, madcavestudios.com. They have a lot of great work. But we're here to talk about your brand new comic book series, basically based in a shared universe called The Underworld. So what can you tell us about The Underworld? What is The Underworld?
Well, as you know, we started Mad Cave with the notion of I grew up in the late 80s, so I'm kind of like a fan of everything that came during that time. Action, adventure, The Protector, all of those cool stories that really, I think, that made me who I am to this day. And how can I be as a creator? I think that everything, it just came spun from that, for all that content. So when we launched Mad Cave, we were putting out titles like Honor and Curse, which was a shinobi in the 1600s, cursed by a demon, and it was Battle Cats. So you had your anthropomorphic animals, kind of like Game of Thrones meet Lord of the Rings in an RPG setting, kind of like.
Right.
You had your 5 cats, and you had your paladin, you had your mage, your rogue in this crazy fantasy world. And we also had Knights of the Golden Sun, which was basically the archangels versus fallen angels, and this battle against God and Lucifer and all that stuff. So it was more about creators, protectors. Your protectors, your everyday protectors. Midnight Task Force was a detective, a schizophrenic detective. In the cyberpunk setting. So all this type of things, I think that was I was really influenced by all that. So when the time was right with Underworld, I was like, okay, why don't we try to actually come up with, even if we are an indie publisher, why don't we come with a shared universe? And we come up small. We just do it 3 different series. One is called Revolution 9. So it's kind of your spy thriller, your assassin on the run. She's a member of a very ancient secret society that has been pulling the strings of everything good and bad since the Roman era. Then we have Hour of the Wolf, which is kind of like your weird horror title about one operative that actually moves through time, jumps to different moments in time. And the Hour of the Wolf is between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. And there's this painting that comes to life, and it's hunting this family, and he has like 1 hour to save this family. And
that sounds cool.
And then we have Exit City, which is a man-made island 200 miles from the coast of California, where it's like this bunch of billionaires came up with this island and they've been policing by algorithm and AI. So your two main characters are detectives in the Exit City police force, and they discovered a brutal murder, and they're going to be investigating. So we kick off Underworld with those three titles, but they're standalone titles. You are able to enjoy as a fan all these different series, and you're like, okay, cool. If I like the action thriller, that's fine. If I like weird and horror, I mean that's also fine. Or if you like your detective noir sort of story, perfect. But then the payoff is that at the end of Exit City, which is going to be the last one that we publish in chronological order, basically, we are going to tease a crossover next year, a big blockbuster summer event, like we like to call it at Mad Cave, and it's going to explode with all three titles. It's going to combine all three titles, and it's going to be called Endless Night. So I have this kind of like little graphic right here. So you have your Revolution 9, which are 4 titles. Then you have Hour of the Wolf, 4 titles, and then you have like Exit City, and then we have Endless Night at during the summer of next year. So I think that with everything that I grew up with and everything that inspired me to become a writer, become a creative, come up with Mad Cave, start Mad Cave as a publisher. In a nutshell, I think that this is a celebration of the 10 years. Because it's all the stories, everything that I was passionate about when I wanted to just write comics and build a publisher from the ground up.
That's very cool. So you're writing all of these books, right? Like all of the different series. So you kind of have to get into a different mindset for each book. Mm-hmm. I'm curious just about the process in general. When you're writing them, like, do you have to really focus on one at a time, or are you like doing like a couple different issues of?
Are you like multitasking between the different comics that you're writing?
Yeah. Sure. You always have to multitask as long as you have them clear. It's like if you have different friends, you don't talk to all your friends the same way. They're right. So it's basically, I mean, that approach. So the key here, or my approach, is what I was telling you guys about. Like, okay, Revolution 9 is a spy thriller, so I focus on the spy thriller aspect of what this story should be. I mean, what are these characters? What do they entail? Then when you shift, I mean, to Hour of the Wolf, then you go and be like, okay, this is going to be creepy horror in a creepy horror setting, and then you approach it like that. And then with Exit City, you're kind of like, okay, sci-fi, detective noir, kind of like sprinkled all over the place. So each one has to have a different appeal, because it's like it's like when we fell in love with Marvel doing this huge movies, they were not a copy paste of every movie. Iron Man was very different from The Winter Soldier.
Right.
The way that even Doctor Strange, it was a very different movie from Thor. So that's what it has to be. It can't be a copy paste of everything that you're doing. Every single one has to have like a different flavor. They have to be unique in their own way.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
This sounds like such a fun undertaking, and it also sounds like something that you've had to do a lot of planning. How long ago did you start this idea, and like how long have you been executing to get to this point?
Well, there's a little bit of history with all these books, because as I told you guys, like back in the day when I wrote this this title called Midnight Task Force, like its protagonist is called Ada McCormick. So he's your protagonist of Exit City. And then Revolution 9, which your main character, the assassin of the Order of Nine, she actually was one of the first titles that we launched Mad Cave with also, which was called RV9. And Hour of the Wolf, your main character in Hour of the Wolf is actually he's an operative within Wovenheart, which is also another series that I wrote. So it's great that you asked, Christian, because a lot of this has been like brewing, and then I had like a previous work done, like a springboard. I used to have like inspiration before some of the characters that actually built Mad Cave. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna throw them in. I'm gonna basically just give him a facelift, and we're gonna come up with that for 2024. So a lot of planning, yes, to try to get all your pieces, I mean, so that they work for the purpose of the crossover and everything that you want to do. But for me, I mean, these characters have been with me since we started Mad Cave.
You have a clear like distinction between like the three titles you have, you know, like your noir and then so like thematically, you know, very different tone, or I mean they're different but all kind of within the same vein, so it won't like be crazy if you brought them all together. Tonally, however, like what is there one that like kind of leads more towards like a comedy and like maybe this is more towards like a serious thriller, or are they all kind of tonally?
No, I think that both can kind of like all three of them might share one of the themes that you just mentioned. So, for example, sure, that thriller aspect. I mean, I think that you can probably see them through all three of them. So, of course, you have those elements in storytelling that's how you get your audience. That's how you get people invested in exactly what is it that they want. But also with the crossover, the plan was like, what are you into? So, if you like horror, okay, you might get something from this series. If you like a spy thriller, you may get something from this series. But thematically, I mean, the common thread is there, because it's like when I was writing one of the first titles that was actually published by Mad Cave very long time ago was Battle Cats, and again, anthropomorphic cats in this mystical world, everything. So if you're gonna bring those characters into something like this, I mean, it's just going to be it's going to be very silly. It's not going to work. It's going to be like so far fetched. So you're right, Christian. Some of these books, I mean, they do have that little element, that thread, that when Exit City wraps up, which is your third and last standalone series, you're going to be like, oh, okay. So really, I mean, I'm trying to get people behind the series so they can actually wait for the payoff next year.
So this might be a little bit a little early for me to ask, but I'm wondering what is like the long-term goal here. Is it just these three titles? Are you planning on rolling in more titles? Is this a beginning, middle, and end? Do you have the end to the story, or is this like an ongoing, like Walking Dead, never-ending thing that you're planning?
Funny that you ask. I mean, this is just phase one. We're already building a phase two. We're already building a phase two, which is actually going to be like, okay, bigger, is going to be badder. You're definitely going to see like, okay, more, but you're building up to something, because I think that, like you were saying, I mean, Walking Dead is a great example. And I was speaking with Mike Martz the other day, and he said, like, you know what, when Walking Dead actually was published, I mean, those books were not selling at first. Those books actually struggled in the direct market. But as time went by and Kirkman went going, and everybody was like, oh man, okay, there's something here, and I can rally this series, and I can get behind a few trade paperbacks, and oh my God, this is so cool. Let's get behind it. So the ultimate goal with this is like, sometimes comics now feel like a flash in a pan. Like you get content, very, very short content. You get your mini series. I mean, 4 series, 5 series. That's it. I grew up with series that would run 100 and something issues. I mean, Invincible, Sandman, Hellboy it's still going. I mean, your Saga, exactly. There you go. I mean, so those things. Why the Last Man, even East of West. So I miss
of everything you just said. That's funny.
Exactly. So I mean, I'm a fan of that stuff too. So I'm like, I mean, because it's becoming so hard that I was like, okay, why don't we take this approach through Mad Cave, an independent publisher, and we kind of like build this world. But it's not like, you're not going to have, when you're starting, and again, as I told you, Kevin, when we started this conversation, like we want to do this organically. I mean, okay, let's try to do a crossover. Okay, a crossover indie publisher. Do you have enough traction for that? But let's do it. Let's start small. Let's start really, really small with 3 series, 4 series each. But again, you can collect the whole thing, and it's just going to be, well, you're going to have a decent number of issues when you collect the first trade paperback, and it's also going to be like your phase one. So that's a great question, Christian. I think that's the end. That's the ultimate goal, to try to keep coming, producing more content, and we're already working on it.
Here's a crazy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, do you work with an end in mind, or do you work out the end as you go?
Depends on the story. always is very good to actually know, I mean, how you're going to wrap your series. That's also key, and a lot of writers would tell you that it's better to start with the end
At the
than
end.
even with the beginning, because sure, you can actually wrap this up. But I was talking with a very good friend of mine, a writer, the other day, and I was like, yeah, but you know what, who's the ultimate bad guy? Who's the ultimate bad guy? Who's the big bad wolf? And he was, you know what? The problem is that when you present a big bad wolf and when you present your ultimate boss, so to speak, then you need to come up with another one
Right.
and another
Right.
one.
Mhm.
So depends. Like for now, sure, there might be like, okay, since I hinted at you guys that this is about secret societies, you might have that looming menace through this secret societies, and they're kind of like pulling bad guys left and right. But at the end of the day, you're questioning yourself, like, okay, how deep does the rabbit hole go? I mean,
Mhm.
who's really like controlling? There's always a guy in charge, right?
Always.
But there's always a guy in charge. But
A puppeteer, if you would.
exactly, somebody pulling the strings. But at first, I mean, the way that we're just having so much fun with this, Eli, that right now is just like,
Mhm.
okay, they're your protagonist. I mean, they have to come up with crazy ways of just trying to just like get to the other side of the road. Basically, just like,
Right.
and little by little, you're gonna be up in the stakes. You're gonna be up in the stakes. So we'll see. We'll see.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Here's a crazy question, and I'm probably this is like way out of left field. You have so many exciting titles, obviously, like all the stuff that we're talking about, all the like the stuff that we're working on now. But you also have some like really classic titles like Defenders of the Earth. You have Flash Gordon, Dick Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
What are the chances that you roll in those characters into, or is that just like that's a completely different universe?
That's a completely different universe,
Okay.
Christian,
That's
because
just-
because since those characters, I mean, sometimes sure you can do it, but like I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the thing is that Mad Cave has three approaches when it comes to publishing. You have your homegrown titles, which is, for example, Underworld. So
Mhm.
Mad Cave owns those characters. Mad Cave owns this IPs. We have creator-owned titles, which is basically creators that you admire, and they come up, they come to Mad Cave with their project, and we partner so we can publish. I mean, their work, and we take care of it. But ultimately, is theirs. And then those titles that you just mentioned, like I mean, Defenders of the Earth and Flash Gordon and Gatchaman, those are licensed products.
okay.
So somebody owns them. Sure, sometimes you can go to them and be like, listen, I want to use your characters. Then we will have to work a deal. That's why sometimes you see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossing over with Power Rangers, or you
Or
see now
Batman.
Teenage Mutant exactly, or you see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossing over with Batman. So somebody at IDW spoke with somebody at DC, and we're like, okay, can we make this work? So all those things are always deals, and there's a lot of red tape that you have to go through it. But hey, never say never. You don't know what's gonna happen.
I would love to see Dick Tracy pop up in this role. I'm not gonna lie. Like Dick Tracy used to be one of my favorites.
I've never read
Oh,
Dick Tracy.
mine too.
The
Hey,
comic
you
and the
should,
movie.
Eli, you should get on board. I mean, we're publishing. I mean, Dick Tracy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's written by Moriarty and Segura. Gerardo Borges is on art. He's
It's a
killing
lot of
it. I
fun.
mean, you should definitely just jump on board, because if you like Batman, our approach to
Mhm.
Dick Tracy is like it's kind of like your Batman year one. So it's
Yeah.
like Dick Tracy year one. So it's perfect jump on point for those that have never read Dick Tracy, or have only seen the Detective in Yellow here and there. So
Real good.
When we were kids, Dick Tracy was the coolest, Eli. Like all
Oh,
of
yeah.
us, all of us wanted like watch
Oh,
phones. Which
Even
was,
the movie, Warren Beatty, man. Like,
Oh my God, yeah.
calling Dick Tracy. Oh my God, so
Yeah.
that was incredible.
My
Oh.
favorite is the Red Hood.
Yeah, he's a big Batman fan. The Red Hood is his favorite character.
Oh my God, believe me, I love Batman. So we're on the same page.
So I have a question about like just kind of the writing process in general. When you know I think one of the biggest kind of criticisms that like something like the MCU gets sometimes is that it's like it seems like it's just kind of setting up the next thing, right? Like it's just kind of there to like set up the next thing, and then it's going to build up to this other thing. How do you find that balance when you're writing something like this where you know where it's going? Is there like a key to like figuring out like how much you want to give to that, but also how much of this story that you're trying to tell here is the most important part? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it like, 80% this story, 20% kind of what's gonna building up to something else? Or
Or is it less like maybe like 5% building up to it and like 95 building up to it, or like more 50-50 down the middle?
Yeah. How do you approach it as a writer? Are you like constantly thinking about what's coming up later, or are you really just kind of focus on this story, see where this story goes, and then we'll eventually get to that build-up point?
At the end of the day, it just depends on the type of story that you're telling. Like Eli was asking a question like, okay, do you have an ending in mind? So it just depends. I mean, the way that we are approaching Underworld is that right now we don't have the ending in our sights. I mean, right now it's just going to be like a situation after situation, and then you kind of like go from there. But if you're approaching, let's just say like what we were talking, a mini series that is just going to be 4 or 5 issues, then clearly you're just going to go with an ending in mind, and you're going to be like, okay, I need to wrap this up. This is my story. It also depends on how big your story is and how much you can really, really pull from that story. Because there are stories that eventually sometimes, I mean, if you don't have it planned out, like at least an idea in the beginning, you're gonna run out of juice eventually. Right. And you can see that, for example, with TV shows. And you see, like, for example, there was a first season, and the first season was amazing. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of like go into the second season, you're like, okay, good, not as good as the first one, but okay. And then they go into the third season, I kind of like just like went through a cliff, and it was just completely, I mean, like it lost everything. Why? Because again, it wasn't part of the plan. I mean, sure, writers are creatives at nature, at heart, and they can come up with stuff on the fly, of course. But it's always very good to try to kind of lean heavily on your plan at first. Like, okay, where is this going? What is this going to happen? Is it going to have a clear resolution or not? Or some stories, even they will turn the tables on you and be like, it's an open-ended ending. And then it's at the end, last page, fade to black. But dude, what happened with these characters? It's up to you, Eli. What happened with those characters?
Right.
So again, a little bit of everything. Again, that what I'm trying to say is that I think that it depends on your story, and I think it just depends on what your approach is.
Yeah.
As CW fans, we understand that.
CW, yeah.
Of course, yes, of course,
absolutely. So, you said that one of your biggest influences for Revolution 9 was like 90s, like 80s and 90s, like action movies. I'm reading a quote here from Carlos Reno, who was talking about how it reminds him of, it would be comfortably fit. It would easily be in the hands of Luc Besson, John Woo, or Antoine Fuqua. Those 3 guys are incredible. I'm just curious, what kind of like you said you grew up in the 90s, action movies were like kind of your thing, your bread and butter. What do you have any specific kind of influences that you took from to create Revolution 9? I know you said it's just kind of all throughout your childhood and growing up, but is there any like, did you take influence from John Woo and like, Luc Besson and all those guys?
Of course. I mean, those things are just stuck with me. I mean, those things, I mean, and one of my favorite movies is The Professional by Luc Besson.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I absolutely love it. And sure, I mean, John Woo, my God, I mean, he's such a talented director, but it's also more, I mean, you also take influence a little bit from Kill Bill, or you take influence from The Professional, Golgo 13, which was that animation series.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, it's an assassin, it's he's fighting, I mean, with these characters, I mean, that are larger than life. But also, I mean, you take cues from The Transporter, you take cues from The Raid, you take cues from I mean, that first season of Daredevil when he fights, I mean, his way through that freaking corridor or staircase. So all those things, I mean, it's just like, I just love everything that you just said.
The outfit on the cover for the character reminds me of a Netrunner suit from a Cyberpunk.
Yeah. It's this one is a little bit more, let me see, I have the other cover here a little bit. Yeah, it's, you're right on the money, Eli. Of course, you have to have a little bit of flair. I mean, just with your with your characters. I mean, in terms of what they look like. I mean, that's also big. That's also a big part of what you were talking about. Okay, what's going to be my presentation? What are these characters going to offer you? How are they going to look like? So you can be like, oh my God, this is really something that is worth investing. So yeah, all those things that you mentioned. Going back to that, I mean, it's like, or even I don't know if you guys are familiar with a comic book called Lazarus, written by Greg Rucka.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's an amazing book. It's an amazing
Incredible.
book. So again, I'm a fan of all those type of books. Strong female characters. I also really enjoy. So yeah, La Femme Nikita.
I enjoy those
I was
too.
about to say La Femme Nikita is like amazing.
Yeah, you were gonna say something, Eli?
I enjoy those too.
Perfect. Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we what was the last one? What did we watch the other day with the there was something we watch anyways. We watch a lot of movies, so it's kind of hard to
Way
keep
too
track
many
of what
sometimes.
we watch.
I get you.
Well, no such thing as too many for movies.
No, not at all, not at all.
No.
So Revolution 9 is the first in the series to come out. When does that release, and where can people find it?
Revolution 9 is already out.
Okay.
It released. It dropped last Wednesday.
Gotcha.
Then our next series that is coming out is Hour of the Wolf, which drops October. It's the last week of October, so perfect timing for Halloween. And then Exit City drops on November. So 1 month apart, and then each month also we're continuing this standalone series. I mean, Revolution, Hour of the Wolf, and Exit City until they reach issue 4. So probably by the next of February of next year, March of next year, we're gonna wrap everything up.
I'm just kind of
Go ahead,
sorry.
Christian.
I'm
No, go
just
ahead.
kind of curious what the pipeline is for you guys specifically. I know it's probably different for every other publisher, but like, when you are working on, let's say you're writing on a title, I'm assuming that you're writing and the illustrator is working at a different time. Like you probably write first and then you hand it off the script to an illustrator. But let's say once he's finished with illustration and you kind of are done with editing, what is the timeline between that and like getting that issue to stores?
I mean, ideally, and every publisher is different, but I mean, at least at Mad Cave, I mean, you have to have at least 4 issues under your belt before you actually release your first title. Because we've been, of course, there's things that sometimes fall through the cracks. I mean, especially when you work with licensors, that you have to go through approval. So you try to work quickly, but sometimes, unfortunately, it's not in your hands. But usually, for Mad Cave, we don't want to miss any dates. I think that's super disrespectful to you guys. Sometimes, of course, some things are out of our control, but at least when we release a series, we like to at least have between 3 and 4 issues ready to go, so we don't run into those problems.
So you showed us all the plans leading up to next summer. So basically, by what you're saying, like you guys are done with all of those issues already. Like you're just waiting for publishing.
Yeah, at least for the first 2. I mean, they're pretty much done. Revolution 9. Exit City. We're working on the last issue right now, and since we have Endless Night, I mean, they're already working on the first issue of next summer.
So what is that like on your guys' end? Because it's such a long timeline from you guys completing your end to like the public seeing it. So like that anticipation of, I can't wait till the public sees this, or I can't, like anticipating like what the reaction is going to be like. How is that for you guys?
Oh, that's brutal. So sometimes, I mean, and that's and look, and most of these deals for a publisher, I mean, they can really go back to 2 years before they actually see the light of day.
God damn.
So you're like, I mean, and some creator-owned books, they've been sitting, and it's because of our pipeline, because exactly of the pipeline that you were saying, and our publishing schedule, that there are books that are ready to go, but they need to be released in a year because we can't actually just flood the market with Mad Cave Studios product. I mean, that there are not enough dollars to just go to Mad Cave. So we basically just have to funnel everything. So sometimes, for example, and again, this goes back to your question, Kevin, is like how the 10-year has been for Mad Cave. Amazing. Like right now we have creators or people trying to bring in their work to Mad Cave, and we are completely booked until 2026. We cannot look at anything. Even if somebody would come with their project right now and be like, I'm ready to go, we are fully committed until 2026. So
it's a good problem to have.
That's how. No, if I could only show you our publishers, and I'm not talking about Mad Cave, I'm talking about Chris Fernandez, which is Mad Cave Studios publisher. He has this master publishing list, and it's it was called back in the day the infinity infinity
never ending.
Yeah, because it's brutal. It's massive. And again, when is this title going to be released? When is this title going to be released? And again, most of those titles have multiple covers. Most of those titles have multiple issues. Some of those titles have 4 issues. Others have 5. Others have 6. Or they have 12. So you're kind of and then the trade paperback. When does this release? So it's madness. But there's a method to the madness, guys.
That's good.
Always know that, Eli. Okay.
Yep.
Hey, I'm a D&D DM, so I gotta find a balance.
Cool.
Yeah.
You're built for this stuff, man.
Try to be.
He tries to be. He is doing it at school. He's the lead of his D&D club at school.
Good.
Which is pretty cool.
Good.
I'm our only senior DM there.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Kudos to you, sir. Very cool. Very cool. You're one of us.
David Hazan says madness. It's in the name, I think, right? I think so. Yeah. He says it in the comments there. So Mark, where can people find you? Do you have any socials or anything? And where can people look up your stuff?
Yes. But first of all, big shout out to David Hassan. David Hassan is the writer of Nottingham.
Oh, David.
David Hassan is one of our top creators at Mad Cave. I mean, he knocked it out of the park. He's a talent search winner. I love David to death.
Very cool.
Nottingham again. It caught everybody by surprise because of the quality and everything.
I read Nottingham. That was great.
I mean, but so there you go. There's Mr. David Hassan and work by Connery Volk. I mean, so yes, and you're right. Madness. It's absolutely in the name, sir. So you're right. Okay, so sorry, Kevin.
No, you're fine.
All socials, Instagram, Facebook, Mad Cave Studios, madcave.com, or you can even look at my stuff, or I try to really shout out the company and creators, Mark London, MCS, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn. You have to try to be everywhere.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We really, really appreciate it. I cannot wait to read all of these and see what's to come next summer. It's going.
I don't
to be
think
exciting.
we heard where we can find the comics.
They're available at any local comic book store.
Yeah.
We got to run it.
Yes.
We will. We're going out. We're going to go out this weekend and we'll find them for you.
Mm-hmm.
No worries.
Especially Revolution 9.
Yeah, especially Revolution Night. And so, Mark, like I said, congratulations on 10 years at Mad Cave Comics and everything you guys have done. It's been amazing. I enjoy really seeing you guys at like Comic Cons and stuff like that. Sometimes we run into you. We live up in Portland, Oregon, so we work in Comic Con and stuff. Sometimes up here, so I get to see some of your writers and your artists and stuff up here, and it's always a fun time.
Very cool, Kevin.
Yeah. So thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for checking out the show. As usual, check out pastramination.com for the latest reviews, articles, all that fun stuff. You can also check out Pastrami Nation on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere. Twitter, X, whatever it's called. I don't even know.
Too much.
You know what? Whatever. Pinterest, all that fun stuff. You can find me, Kevin Hoskinson, or Kevin_Hoskinson on all those. Also, Christian, where can they find you?
You can find me at all the normal socials under Christian Nacorda. Just know if you DM me, you won't get a response until after the semester. So I'll see you in December.
Yes. Christian is very busy. And until then, well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for checking the show. And we will see you all next week. All right. You have a good one. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye, guys.